Don't spill on this because Des will kill you.
What is it?
This is the tablecloth for tomorrow for the communion.
Is it a new tablecloth?
No, but I'm sure she doesn't want to have to wash this thing in the morning with all the other things that we're getting ready for.
Gotcha. Oh boy.
So don't spill.
I'll try. I get very excited when I hit the table.
Yeah, that's already going to be a problem. You're going to shake the camera too.
Yeah, that's right.
We're not, no pounding the table and no spilling. Can we keep it to those two things, please? Hey everybody, welcome back to the Goody and Johnny Mo channel. We have not been around for almost a year, about 9 months since our last video. We don't really have a good reason for it, other than just we have not been able to get together and really do this.
Yeah, I want to say 10 months if it was June.
We have seen a lot of films, but we have not been able to really sit down and do a review. It's kind of just tough.
June 2023.
Yeah.
That's 10 months ago. Crazy.
So
that's the longest gap between episodes.
It is.
By far.
It is. And we promise we are going to do better. We are actually going to try to do quite a few reviews tonight on some recent films that we've seen over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, because we've been going to the movies.
Yes, we just have not been able to do this. But our first episode tonight, this is episode 65, so it's a nice little milestone marker. We are going to be doing the movie Civil War that just came out. Not to be confused with the Captain America Civil War. This is the brand new film that came out by Alex Garland. It was just released on Thursday night.
Yep.
And
We saw it Thursday night.
we saw it opening night, kind of getting back into our old ways.
But first,
Before we get into the review, our traditional drink and +1 shot of the night.
I decided that because we haven't done an episode in so long, we need to do a little shot.
So this is a little Goody and Johnny Mo reunion.
Yeah.
So cheers to all you guys. Cheers to us for getting this thing going again. Cheers.
And that was the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Reserve.
What's the proof on that one?
A lot.
Is it 130?
I think so.
Ooh, baby.
And then we got what beer are you drinking?
This is something that's new. It's a new seasonal. I just picked this up today. It's a Samuel Adams Pool Party. It's an IPA. It's, I guess, one of their, like a new summer IPA for them.
Gotcha.
I'm usually not an IPA drinker, but it came with the variety pack that I got.
That's really funny because you mentioned Pool Party earlier, and in my head, I thought you were referencing like you got it at your
a pool party.
at a pool party, or like at the last party you had at the house. It's been sitting in your cooler.
It's been sitting
in your cooler.
Well, that wouldn't
party.
be unthinkable since I do tend to leave the cans in there for quite some time after the party's over.
So Sam Adams Pool Party, new seasonal. What's the flavor? What is it?
It's like an IPA. It's like citrusy.
Oh, it's an IPA. It's a citrusy
Yeah, it's like
IPA.
a citrus IPA. That's kind of what it tastes like.
I'm drinking. I've made sure for this episode that I'm drinking a beer that I've never drunk before.
Oh, is this the one that you bought a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I've never drunk it before on an episode of Goody and Johnny Mo. I'm drinking Czech Var, which is
From the Czech Republic.
From the Czech Republic. And so the deal with the distributor I go to is, you always go in there and just see if you see anything different. And 9 times out of 10, you just see the same stuff you see all the time. But every now and then, they throw something in the refrigerator.
You always seem to pick up something odd, though.
I'll be honest with you. If I see a European beer in there that I've never drank before, and as long as it doesn't look crazy, I'm just going to try it on general principle. I'd never seen Czech Var or heard of it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have high expectations for it, but it's there, and I'm gonna try it. And at the end of the day, I'll invest a 6-pack of anything.
Yeah.
You know what? And it is what it is. It's nothing spectacular. It's very basic. But one of the things that really is a red flag is that it doesn't have anything on it that says, since You know, you find these German beers in there sometimes that you never even heard of. When you look at the labels, like since 1747. Wow, okay, it's been around for a long time, just maybe not in America. You know, but Czechvar, we don't know how long it's been around for because they don't tell you. And to me, that's like a red flag. Like they're not even like, for all I know, I'm actually gonna have to look it up and just see how long it's been around.
Well, Google usually takes care of that.
But I was like, really? And I specifically looked for it. I'm like, really? There's nothing on here saying, but it is what it is.
Okay.
Czechvar. Hey,
Well-
anything's worth a shot. You never know.
Cheers to episode 65.
You never know when all of a sudden you're gonna buy your new favorite beer. Like, oh my God, this is great. I love it.
That's true. That's why if you're ever in a beer shop, if you're ever in a distributor that has some like off the beat stuff,
Yeah,
might be worth taking a chance on
There's a
something.
lot. There's a lot more to life than Budweiser and Coors and even
Miller.
Beck's.
Yeah. A lot of your
Negro
traditional-
Modelo, traditional European or
Your
foreign
Guinness.
country beers. Guinness. There's more than that. Some of it's great. Some of it's just just there. There's a reason why you don't see Czechvar too often. I think.
It's definitely not a main staple. Okay, so I think with that, let's jump into the
What am I
review.
wearing? This guy needs a beer. Yes. Yeah, I've never
True.
worn this shirt.
I know you haven't.
I've never ever worn this shirt before ever. I actually had to take off the
Well, I've never seen you put this on.
well, I
before.
purposely went into my drawer. I said, I got to wear a shirt that I've never worn on Goody and Johnny Moe. And then I saw this shirt. I said, I don't think I've ever worn this shirt ever. Because it still had the
Oh, the
XL
tag.
sticker, the piece of tape all
Yeah.
on the front. And I peeled that off. I said, yep. So wearing this shirt for the first time, too.
So this movie was directed by Alex Garland. And
Yes.
now
we looked up some of his movies.
we did a little IMDb, and some of the things that he does was Ex Machina. Is it Ex Machina or Ex Machina?
I think it's Ex Machina,
Machina, right? Okay, I think you might be right about that.
which is supposed to be a really good sci-fi film that I have never seen, but a number of people have told me
Yeah.
you gotta see
I
it.
think Alicia Vikander, is in that.
I haven't the faintest idea who's in it, but it's on my list. I'm gonna get to it. But he also directed
Yeah, 28
Days Later, which to me was like a really good outside of the box zombie film.
Yep.
And I think that really might have been the first movie of recent times where zombies could run.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they made zombies fast. And now you kind of see that quite often.
Yep.
But prior to that, they were never fast. And I think that was actually a really good zombie film.
I mean, he's done some other film. Like
Yeah.
he had like a long list of IMDb, but those two films were notable.
Those are the
that
ones
he's
that
done.
stood out.
So the first preview for Civil War that I saw that came out probably in the fall, I would say early fall. And I remember seeing it, and it just really stood out to me. And I remember telling him a couple of like a week or two after I saw the first trailer, and I was like, "Have you seen this yet?" He goes, "No, I don't even know what you're talking about." And then threw it on, and like this movie called to me. Like I knew I was seeing this film.
Yeah. Basically, Chris kind of told me it was almost like countdown to when Civil War comes out because he was like fiending to see it. I
couldn't wait.
knew we were going to see it.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I would say this was your second most anticipated film of the season. I don't even know what season we're in.
Well, we are in spring.
Spring.
But I mean, definitely like one of my top films in the first half of the year.
Yeah,
like
because
first 6 months that I wanted to see.
the movie that was at the top of your list was Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. You're
probably right.
I would
Yeah.
hazard to say that's the one
Yeah.
you were like,
I would say like definitely. I would say that's up there.
yeah. So I think
I forget what's coming out in May. There's a couple other ones that are coming out in May that I definitely want to see. But I mean, this one was in my top 3 for sure.
Chris called me Thursday night at work. I was probably between 6 and 7 o'clock at night, and he's like, and I wasn't really presence of mind. I didn't know when Civil War was opening. I just knew you.
Well,
were,
that's usually my job.
yeah.
I
You
usually,
were going to let me know. 'Cause
usually
I didn't
tell
really
you.
keep track of that. But he's like, Civil War opens today. Do you want to go tonight? And I'm like, yeah, I think I can do that. I said, he goes, whatever. I think it was 10 o'clock show.
get the hall pass.
I said, all right, we're good. I hang up the phone. My wife literally calls me 5 minutes later. 5 minutes later. She's like, when are you coming home? I said, I'm actually coming home soon, but don't get mad. Me and Chris are going to the movies tonight. She's like, what? I'm like, I just got off the phone with them. Like, because usually I would tell her the day before, or at the very latest that morning. Say, look, just letting you know we're going.
Yeah, well, we usually plan it.
Yeah, I
a little
usually
more in
know
advance.
beforehand. But she's like, I could hear it in her head going like, when
You son of
when
a
were you going to
bitch.
tell me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Carmen, I'm like, I literally just got off the phone with Chris 5 minutes ago,
Yep.
and he sprung it on me. And she's like, and you couldn't say no. And I'm like, no.
This is.
I'm like, no. I mean, I don't want.
This was
I'm
my
not-
fault.
I'm not going to say no anyway. But I'm certainly. But for this movie, I knew Chris was chomping.
No,
at
this
the
was
bit.
this was my fault.
'Cause
I'll take responsibility.
I could see you actually going. If I was like, oh, I can't make it. Me and Coleman are going out tonight. You would have been like, all right, I gotta go. I'm going by myself.
No, I would have waited. We would have figured something out. But I'm glad we got to see it that night. And actually,
Yeah.
for a Thursday night film at 10 o'clock, there were a good amount of people in the theater.
Yeah.
It wasn't sold out, but for a 10 o'clock
Yeah.
film, there was a good amount of people in
So
there.
we saw it at Island 16. Oh, so first, before we get to the preview, the previews that I saw, there were certain aspects of it that really drew me in.
I think there were only two.
Yeah,
I remember there being like a teaser and then like a trailer. I don't remember there being, because nowadays it's like they have a teaser, they have an initial trailer, and then they have a final trailer.
and depending on the movie, they may have a lot more trailers. But I remember seeing the trailers and not being as enthusiastic as Chris. But there were certain elements of the trailer that did pull me in a little bit. But and I'll get more into this later. But like, just some of the, I don't want to say like the problem I had with the movie, but one of the things that was a little bit hard for me to get past. I think it was something that was a little hard for me to get past in the movie. And I expected that based on the trailer because I was sitting
Right.
there like, but I'll get more into that later. So anyhow, we saw the movie Thursday night and we went to Island 16 in Holbrook and the tickets were like $20. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, did movie prices go up? But then we found out that we were seeing it in like, I think would have to be like,
It was like
the best theater of their. I mean, I think they have six.
And
So
their
obviously, they have
franchise.
16.
Yeah.
Of the 16 theater screens in that building, that's the best one. I'm pretty sure. It's like the
I've never seen a movie in that particular.
yeah. It's
theater.
like what is it? What do they call it? XP special, something like that.
Yeah, XP
It was
plus, X plus or something. Yeah.
It was like it even had like a little sign in front of it, so it looked different from the other openings.
Oh, it stands out.
Yeah,
But
And
I mean,
I'm-
like the screen is like
The screen is
so
enormous.
much bigger. It's not quite IMAX,
no, it's not IMAX.
but it
But
is. It's their biggest screen by far.
Yeah, it's a big screen.
The
It's
surround sound,
very clear.
the seats even would vibrate during certain scenes. Like if the bass was really intense, you felt it.
And I felt like it was even just a bigger theater. Period.
Yes,
Like
no,
I felt
I
like
agree
I
with
felt
you.
like it had more
A little more room.
rows.
Yeah.
But like just from front to back, it had more rows
Yeah.
of some of the other theaters. So it's like really like it's almost like an event. And
I think that's the right way to put it. I think it's like that's more of like an event theater.
yeah, and the image, I thought the image was really clear, and the
absolutely.
music was really crisp.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So I mean, I would go to that. I would go to that again, especially if it's a really
Next time, maybe we'll try a matinee. Maybe we get a couple dollars
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
But
I was like,
yes.
$20. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
but
it was a
but it was
little-
good. The only bad thing about this, the only bad thing about that particular
I know what you're gonna
theater
say.
and I found this very frustrating, is as soon as like things were getting ready to start, I said, you know what, let me go to the bathroom now, before the movie
Yeah, get
starts.
out of the way.
I come back, and it wasn't long in the bathroom. The bathroom literally was like right next to the theater, so I was back pretty fast. But I had missed at least the first full minute of the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Chris and I'm going, there were no previews? Are you freaking kidding me? Like, I'm like, one, That's bullshit. No previews is bullshit. Two, you're charging me $20, and you can't wait to get me out. So you're not for $20. I don't know. You should get as many previews as everybody else gets. But I'm paying $20 and I didn't even get how cool would it be to see some previews on that big screen?
Now, the only thing I'm not sure of is it just that particular screen doesn't do previews, or is it just for that particular movie, that particular showing, they just did do previews?
Thursday night matinee. I don't know.
we won't know unless we go in there again, because it's the only time we've ever been in that theater before.
And I was pissed. And what annoyed me is that the first couple of minutes of the movie are very important. Because
yes.
the movie starts with the President of the United States talking about the current events.
He's basically giving. The president's played by Nick Offerman, and the movie takes place like a few years into the future. They don't tell you when.
Yeah, they don't tell you
when. It's
when.
like near future.
Yeah, it's not like 100 years in the future.
No.
But
it's like within the next couple of years, the next 5 to 10 years.
I would say I would say probably within the next 10 years.
Yeah, and essentially he's basically up on the presidential podium, and he just comes out. He just starts. He's talking. He's monologuing, and it just almost sounds like he's practicing a speech. He's not on camera yet, but he's basically going over what he wants to say to the American people. And John probably missed about, probably right, at least a minute to 2 minutes.
But at least a minute or two of dialogue that, in my opinion, probably gave you enough information about the backstory to kind of put things into perspective. It really told... I believe it really told a lot about what was going on from right out of the gate, and I missed some of that dialogue.
To a degree. I think you might be right about that. I mean, I don't think it doesn't ruin that for you, the movie for you, but I understand as someone who's trying to figure out
what's going on,
because missing
what the movie does not do for most of the movie is it doesn't really explain what's going on. It's more about the experience.
Well, it is. It's basically just putting you in the situation like the country's in a second civil war.
Yeah.
And you're watching it through the eyes of these journalists that are basically traveling from New York to DC.
Yeah.
That's their goal. So that whole journey from New York as they drive down the states into DC, we're witnessing everything that they're witnessing.
Yeah, and it's and there's not a lot of exposition about what's going on and why. It's more, you're there
because you're
for
in
the
it.
ride.
You're in it at this point. It seems like it had been going on for a while.
Yeah, you're
this isn't like this war didn't just start. This has been going on for a period of time, and how they explain it is that California and Texas have seceded. Mm-hmm. Florida is kind of on its way, and it's trying to take the Carolinas with it. And essentially, the rest of the United States are basically at war with them, and they're trying to pull those states back in by defeating them. But the discussions that you get throughout the movie, and it's this little bit of dialogue. It's not a lot, and it's just basically explaining that a lot of the middle of the country it's not that they're unaware of it, but they're almost just ignoring it. They don't want to really be a part of it.
Yeah, not everybody, because it's a big country. But to me it was I like movies that don't
spoon feed you.
over explain everything.
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't really do that. But what they did do was give you enough information in the very beginning so that you could take that information and carry it through for the rest of the film, and then just almost live vicariously through the characters that you're watching.
Yeah.
But if you miss that opening dialogue, it makes the rest of the movie a little harder to put in perspective as to what you're seeing. It's I missed some of that key information, which was a little annoying. Because even at one point, I was the Western forces were invading towards the end, are invading, Washington D.C. And I'm going to Chris. I'm like, okay, so which ones are the Western forces? Is that, Texas and California, or is that everybody else?
Yeah, but they do mention that a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're listening
I
to
felt like they explained a lot of that really fast. They made sure that
that is some of the stuff that the president speaks about in the beginning. You know, the movie. There are a couple of key scenes in this film that are worth going to see.
Yeah.
You know, in my head, from what I remember watching, there's like three incredible scenes, and one of them to me is the opening scene in New York.
Oh, okay.
The one of the opening scenes is it looks like there's a lot of people standing to try to get water from a water truck, and this is it. It almost is. It's not the. Is it the EPA?
Yeah, I think so.
Right? Like they basically have this giant water truck on the street somewhere, what seems to be New York, and Kirsten Dunst is one of the photographers. Her and her friend, her colleague, this other journalist. I knew I was going to forget his name.
Yeah. He's a Spanish guy.
Mora.
Yeah. And he
Mora. He basically is like they put on their press jackets
They're like
and
a team.
everything. Yeah, they're a team. So she's like a famous photographer. You don't know that yet, but you figure that out later.
Yeah.
And they're basically just taking pictures of like there's the military that's controlling the distribution of water with these trucks, and these people are lining up, and you can see that they're just very upset at trying to get, I guess, the proper rations for their families and themselves. And there's a person that comes through. Well, before that, and then like there's this young girl who all of a sudden just starts to come about, and she's just taking pictures with like an old school camera.
Yeah.
And Kirsten Dunst kind of like starts talking to her and kind of just, you know, who are you? It's like, you got to be careful. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. And all of a sudden, Kirsten Dunst sees this woman running towards the crowd, towards the container with a huge American flag. And all of a sudden, Kirsten Dunst gets this look on her face, and she takes the girl and she ducks down behind a car. And then all of a sudden, the giant explosion goes off.
Yeah. And you know what? In my head, in that scene, I'm like, something's
going to happen.
Something's going to happen here.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was going, I think there's a bomb going to go off at some point. And I was predicting a bomb.
And like you could just, in the way that Kirsten Dunst saw that happening, it's like she knew ahead of time to expect something.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's amazing is after that scene goes off, there's dead silence.
Yeah, and that's because everybody.
There's that. Like, yes,
You're mimicking what the people are going through,
Right.
that their eardrums will
and like
blow.
you start to get like a little bit of a perspective of like the young girl who's like never seen anything like that before,
Yeah.
and she is just watching as Kirsten Dunst is like standing over some of these bodies, and she's like taking pictures, and it's just
there's a ton of dead bodies.
it's like Kirsten Dunst is just completely like numb. No, not numb, but like she's.
I know what you're saying.
What's the word? She has no emotion towards it.
Yeah,
It's like,
she's completely uninvolved.
She's like-
she's
she's strictly there to take the pictures.
yes.
Of what's going on. You know, like emotionally, she is separating herself from what she just witnessed.
Like this is her job.
Right, and it's like, she's been there before, as you start to see, like she's been involved in, like she's a combat journalist, a war journalist.
Well, she really explains it really well because the girl is like the young girl who, okay, so apparently whatever her name, Kaylee, something like that, her real name, the young girl.
Kaylee, and the show, in the movie her name's Jessie.
Yeah, she said, I think in the movie she says she's like 23, but we found out and realized she's like 26, but she looks 16.
She looks very young in the film. She looks like she's still in high school.
Yeah, she looks like a high school person on the you know.
But I think that's what, like, obviously that's what they're going for. Like, they're going for someone who's really young.
What do you call it? The high school like newspaper. Like she's a photographer for the high school newspaper. But you know, but she's cute. But Kirsten Dunst really like explains it to her, saying like, you know what, like whatever's going on, like you got to distance yourself from it. You can't start asking questions about who, what, when, you know, why is this happening? What's my role? Like, how should I feel? You're not there
for that
to ask questions, because once you go down that rabbit hole, you'll never get out. You're there to take pictures so that other people
can ask those questions.
Can look at those pictures
Yeah.
and ask those questions. That's your role in this equation.
It's funny.
And that's very interesting.
I think that's great that you brought that up, because I feel like that is such an interesting point. And as we go through the movie, there is the two roles between Jesse and Kirsten Dunst's character, it's amazing where they start and where they end up. And I think we'll get to that in a minute. But I feel like they did Alex does a fantastic job of
showing the growth,
showing the two characters and how they change in such a short period of time, because this probably takes place within like a couple of days.
Yeah,
like
from beginning to end,
2 to 3 days tops, right?
Yeah,
I think
I would. Yeah,
there was definitely one night. I'm trying to think if there was a second night. I think there was at least probably like 2 nights. So like this is probably over the course of like 2 or 3 days.
Well, they slept the first night in the hotel. And they left the next morning.
And then left the next morning
and
on their trip.
Then they slept.
And they pick up the guy. This guy was a journalist for the New York Times. Stevenson. The actor's name I think is like Stevenson. If you,
he's been in a bunch of.
He's been a character.
He's like
in a lot of films.
he's an older. He's a black cat. He's a black guy, and he's easily in his 60s.
In the movie or in real life?
Probably both.
Yeah, I would say that. I would say
yeah.
so.
Yeah, and he's a little like he's older. And
he's looking for a ride.
He's overweight, and I think he walks with a cane. He's not spry.
No, and that's like the point, because they're like, we're really going to take this guy with us, because where they're going, they're basically going past like the front lines. Like the Kirsten Dunst and her partner, like they're trying to get to the White House.
Yeah,
they want to get down there and they want to try to interview the president before
everything
starts,
before everything reaches fruition.
Right, yeah. Which like everyone is predicting that like the Western forces are going to attack at some point, that they're going to go after DC. So this is like the whole journey, right? Is to get to the White House to try to get in there and interview the president.
Because originally it's just going to be Kirsten Dunst and the other guy going, and then all of a sudden they pick up the older guy from the Times, and then they pick up.
And now the young girl tags along.
The young girl tags along because she wants to go too, and she's like hungry and all that. One thing I want to note is that, and I like this, is even though the film is in color, all the photographs are in black and white, which is good, because one, they probably would be doing that anyway, because, black and white photography is cheaper, but it also looks really good. Like, if you're photographing nature, seascapes or fruit or trees, like color works good. But if you're photographing people and events, black and white is better. Because you see the color gets in the way of the action. It gets in the way of the emotions on the face and shadows and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like when you really see, when you see all the photographs that they show, because a lot of times they're taking pictures and then they show what the photograph is, and I like that. And if you look at all those photographs, you're gonna be like, wow, those are really good. And if they were in color, they would look completely different. Yeah. And if you think about all the most famous photographs like ever made, ever taken, so many of them are in black and white, especially things from like Time magazine, going back, like the photograph of the sailor kissing the girl on Times Square. There's all these iconic photographs, and so many of them in black and white, and thank God for that. So I kind of like that. It's like not a significant amount, but a good amount of this film actually is in black and white, because they show a lot of the photographs, and I kind of like that. I like the way they did that, because it's much more interesting than just showing people taking pictures,
right? But not seeing what what the photo is.
Yeah, and I don't know that I can remember a lot of films that have done that at all. Let alone even if they did to the level that they did in this movie, and that was a nice, I think, artistic touch.
I mean, honestly, like
or a stylistic touch to it.
I mean, as the viewer, like you are kind of curious, because you're watching these people take photos of people getting shot, dying. There's like bullets flying everywhere, and like they're showing you what these like war journalists kind of go through, and the situations that they put themselves in, and the dangers that they put themselves in, because not once did any of these people carry a weapon.
No.
The only thing they had were their cameras.
Yeah. You know, and it was very interesting because, and I'm curious if this is how it is in real life, because war journalists exist.
Yes.
You know, it's like, you know, that's,
Yep. And they put themselves
You know?
in danger every single time they go out
and
there.
you almost, like, I almost would have thought that, like, the war journalist is kind of on their own doing whatever they're doing. But in the movie, they actually, it's, their role is being portrayed as like the combatants are aware of their presence.
Yes. And they are trying to protect them.
They're trying to protect
to
them.
a
So like,
degree.
okay, follow us. Come with,
Yeah.
like
Like there's multiple.
like
multiple
they're actually
scenes.
participating. You know, there's a dynamic there.
Right.
There's an active dynamic on both parts of the journalists
Yeah.
and the combatants. You know,
It's like
because
the
you would
journalists
think
don't want to get in their way, and at the same
Right.
time, the combatants are trying to make sure that the journalists don't get in their way. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it does seem like they are trying to protect them.
Yeah, they
so
are
that they don't
aware.
get shot.
They are aware of their presence, and there's an active dynamic and dialogue between them through the course of the maneuver.
And like, I mean, there's scenes
It was
where
actually very interesting.
and there are times where people are getting shot and they're dying right in front of them. Mm-hmm. They
And they're
don't
just-
try to help them.
Yeah, they're just
they
taking
don't they don't assist. They are literally just taking the photographs of what is happening.
Yeah, and see, and that's an interesting contrast to bring up because that's their job.
Right.
So from a professionalism standpoint, that's the expectation. Do you remember the movie what was the movie with Tom Hanks where he's the guy?
Forrest Gump?
No, the recent movie, Otto.
Oh, A Man Called Otto.
Yeah. So in A Man Called Otto, remember when like the guy in the front of the train?
Yes, how he jumps
Right.
down and
So
helps him.
so everybody's standing there
Oh, taking
taking
pictures.
pictures and not helping.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's the matter with all these people?" And he jumps down and helps. And those people don't have the same leg to stand on than these journalists do.
Well,
You know
it's
what I
for
mean?
very different reasons.
Right. Like, if you're in public and somebody's hurting, and somebody needs help, instead of you should be helping them. You shouldn't be
Right.
taking because it's not your job to take pictures. You're just a guy standing on a platform with a phone and you're videotaping someone about to get hit by a train. That's different from a war journalist being
Right.
on maneuver with somebody, and they're crossing the train tracks and somebody falls down and they're about to get hit by a train. They're going to take pictures of the guy getting hit by the train, and it is expected for them to do so because you can never cross the line, because if you cross the line, then it'll always be a question of whether I should cross the line or do and interact.
Because now you have to ask that in every situation
Right,
you go into.
right. It has to be. It's a completely black and white line. No matter what happens, you are just there to take pictures.
Yeah.
That's it. And
And they, you know what? It's because
And I like
put
that.
them. I think they put them in that situation multiple times in the movie, and at first it really seems like Jesse doesn't understand that line yet. Like she's not getting that at first.
yeah, well, she's young.
Right.
She's, you know what it is. She's looking at it as like
Like, shouldn't we be doing
as a human.
something? Like, why are we?
She's looking at it as like a human.
Yes.
Like she's someone who just happened to walk onto the scene. Should I be a good Samaritan? Should I be helping?
She's so like young and green behind it.
Yeah.
She doesn't see that line yet. Whereas Kirsten Dunst is trying to explain to her, you can't, like you were saying before, you can't go down that rabbit hole. You can't cross that line.
Right.
Because then you never know when to stop.
Right, and it's almost like it's a no-brainer. It's ingrained, and these are questions that probably Kristen Dunst had when she was very
Right.
young in her
Yep,
career.
that's what I wanted to say too.
And she got past it, and now she's seasoned, and
Yes.
and it's just second nature, and this is what it is.
Yeah. No, and they get themselves into situations over and over again as they're traveling from through like the countryside, because it's like they can't go through certain areas of certain states because of how because of like the war going on at this point in time and how serious it is in certain areas. So it's kind of like they're taking like the long way around to get to DC, and at certain times like they finally get to a point where like well one point like they're I mean they're driving on the highway, and I thought this was really cool where like all the cars were just stopped.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
It kind of reminds me a little bit of like The Walking Dead.
yeah,
In seeing that.
and so this,
Like you can't like they know like you can't take the highways because they're
Because
just
there's-
crowded with cars.
yeah, like that,
People
that
just
almost looked
abandon
like
their cars.
abandoned and crashed, and some of them, and there's like burnt out buildings all over the place. So,
Yeah.
so I think this is one of the things that I had a little trouble getting, because I saw this in the preview and I saw it in the movie, and what it does is it just says, if the country was in a civil war, this is what it would be like. And you almost want to sit there and say, part of me is almost like, really? Is that what it really would be like? People like the United States is a big country. There's a lot of people in this country. I find it hard to believe that like almost like the entire country would be in lockdown. Like nobody can leave their house.
But you got to remember, it wasn't like that in some states because like they were even talking about that because some states were almost just like ignoring what was going on, and they made a point to mention that in the film.
Yeah, but like New York City is in lockdown.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody.
Because it's a target.
I know, but everybody in New York, like, how does anybody survive? I mean, did every single household and apartment building in New York City stockpile enough food so that they never have to leave their house or apartment for
No, that's
a year?
No, that's why I think there's
Yeah.
those trucks. Like I'm sure there's like I mean they don't show FEMA, but
Yeah.
like
But
the
it's
EP
crazy.
the EPA handing
But like,
out
okay, so
water.
there's EPA on the water. Like they're in New York City, right?
They're handing out fresh water
In New
Yeah.
York City, there's like 50 people there. There would be 50,000 people.
But I think that's the whole thing of like going through like the
Yeah.
resources and the fact that it is so difficult. I think they were showing it how like, I mean they showed it in that one little context on that one street. Yes.
Yeah.
If you would have done more of like a view of the city and showing that
there
there's
was
more points.
Maybe there's more points.
Where other areas are going through the same exact thing.
But it's almost like there's no cars on the road, and if there are cars on the road, they're destroyed and abandoned, and it's like, oh, like you sit there and you're like, oh my god, like would there?
And well, there's also security checkpoints. Remember,
Yeah.
there was going into certain
Security-
states.
like
there was
security
military checkpoints.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so like, the original Civil War was like, the North versus the South. It's okay. It's like, there's a lot on the North and there's a lot on the South. Now you're talking about, okay, it's like 2 states going on 3 against the other 47.
But the brilliant thing that Alex does is that at one point they're about to like drive through like an outdoor like Christmas village, and as they're going through it, their car starts to get shot at. It's one of
Yeah.
the first times you almost feel like a danger
Yeah.
with them, and they pull around, they stop, and they get out of their car to protect themselves. And they see these 2 guys in fatigues, camouflage fatigues, on the ground, and they're telling them like, careful, like there's a sniper in this home over here. And so the one guy,
And I think those are Army guys. I thought they were military.
they don't tell you.
Yeah.
Because this is I think one of the things that's genius that Alex did was that he's saying one of the journalists goes to the 2 guys. He's like, well, who are you fighting? Like which division are you guys? Like where are you from? And do you know who you're shooting at? Like do you know like who you're fighting against at this point in time? And he's like, buddy, they're trying to kill us. We're just trying to kill them.
Yeah.
He's not. It's not getting in. Like
Yeah.
It's like oh, he's like who's giving you orders? He's
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's like He's like that guy's trying to kill us.
Right. Period.
Like that
Doesn't matter what his agenda
Right.
is.
He's just trying to kill us. So now we have to try to kill him.
We're going to kill him.
Right. And that was. And I feel like that's probably a lot of what was going on.
Yeah.
At some point, I feel like that's a big part.
It
of
almost feels like people in between are taking sides. You would have to be, because at the end of the day, if it literally was like California and Texas against the rest of the nation, I would find it hard to believe that that those 2 states would be able to gather enough military force to march or fly all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast and lay siege on Washington D.C.
But you don't know where some of the
You know what I mean?
Some of the
Like-
things that you don't understand, like that we don't know or understand
Yeah.
yet, is that like how are the military bases involved? Like,
Yeah,
are the military
and-
bases, are they staying loyal to the United States, or are they going with this Western Front faction?
Right,
You
and-
know,
and-
and
And I think that's what it is. It's a matter of like they're like, you know what? The
not
amount
gonna tell you
the
everything.
amount of logistical details that would need to be explained for the movie to make 100% sense would be exhaustive. It would be like it's like, you know what? It's not about crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. It's
Yeah.
about you just got to say, okay, this is what it looks like. Whether
I
you
think-
think it should look like that or not is irrelevant. This is what it looks like, and you just have to accept
I think
that.
ultimately, like that's what he was going
Yeah,
for.
and
Because
when
it's not like
when you
don't-
live
you're not
within
getting
that
into-
reality, it's not about exactly what's happening and how and why. It's more about the story of these characters and
Yes.
their journey through this landscape.
I
And you just have to take the landscape
think that
for granted.
I think Garland was very smart in not diving deep into the politics of it. I think the
Yeah.
fact that he left that out and it was more or less just like
Even like the logistics.
right,
Like
not even getting into that
Yeah.
portion of it, just showing that like these are the forces here that have joined together because they don't like what's going on, and they are gonna, and then the U.S. is trying to stop them,
Yeah.
and basically bring them back into the fold, almost like trying to force a surrender. And the entire time this is happening, we're hearing radio messages from the White House where the president is basically telling people that the Western forces are on their heels, that like we're beating them back, and we
Probably
we
not.
believe that we are going to overtake them within the next couple of days. Like he's basically making this promise that they are going to be stopped.
Yeah.
And this whole civil war is going to come to an end. So the next, like, to me, heart pounding scene in this movie is the one that's shown in the trailer.
Oh yeah. So again, yeah, just to go back, just like I think you're right. Like it's very broad strokes with the landscape. It's just like it just says, it just throws it out on the canvas
Yeah.
and say this is what it is. Don't ask me to explain it. This is where they are,
Right.
and this is what it looks like. And now,
And you're given just enough to really buy
just
into that.
yeah, you well, right. I think and if you can
You're
get
given
if you
just
can get
enough.
past that, then you just go along with the journey of these characters because the journey of those characters
that's the story.
is the story,
Yep.
not as opposed to
it's not the who, what, and why of
Right.
everything that's happening.
Right.
It's watching
Yeah.
everything through their eyes. And you said something to me in this movie at the end of the movie that I feel like it's almost like what this is all about, is that the movie is almost forcing you to reconcile with you watching someone if they were killed in front of you, like
oh
how you would react. Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's trying to take out that numbness that audiences have been kind of drilled with in years, just watching
Gratuitous
violence on
Yeah.
in movies and
yeah.
in TV.
That's what this whole second scene that you're talking about is about. So
Yeah.
it's like the four people are on the road, and they kind of meet up with two other journalists on the road. These two Asian guys.
yeah. That
And,
that the one guy's friends with that knows them.
and they do something crazy that they swap passengers between cars while they're driving, and they go from like one
Yeah.
car to the other in motion, and then the other car pulls away, and it turns out that somehow they got really far ahead of them, and they come across the car and it's empty, and it turns out that they got captured by some military guys. I think they're military.
I think they were just their own
Thing.
thing.
You know what? Could be. Yeah.
And I think that's
could
what
be.
I do. I don't
that's
think they're
scary.
military at all. I think they were just their
Oh.
own people in fatigues.
And one thing I wanted to bring up that we forgot to mention, I felt that the press is known to be neutral. Like they could have been on either side of any battle, and I think they would have been given the same courtesy.
Yeah.
Like the
No, I agree. Whether they were taking pictures from the Western Front or taking pictures with the U.S.
yeah.
Yeah. But they made a point to say that if you went towards like Washington, like journalists were being killed.
Oh,
So that was a thing too about
interesting.
like if you were going into DC, and that almost means like was like the U.S. military like killing the journalists.
Yeah.
Like they did make a point to
maybe
say
they
that.
will maybe the group that's on edge is a little less courteous.
Right, because
Yeah.
they're trying to push their message through and not have it questioned.
Okay, so back
But
to
I mean, getting to this point where like these two,
yeah.
and then the other four, they find them. They're using like their telephoto lenses to
Yeah.
see what's going on.
So-
and they see that their friend Jesse and the one
Asian
journalist who
guy.
came back from New York with them, they're on their knees.
Yeah, and they're being held by these two guys with like automatic weapons.
Yep.
And
And
these
all you see is just a truck
there's a dump
filled
truck
with bodies.
filled with dead bodies
Yep.
that they're lifting up the bed the
the bed of the truck.
the bed of the truck.
And, yeah.
And
They're just rolling out.
They're rolling out and they're going into like a mass grave.
But you don't know that yet.
Oh, yeah, you don't know that.
yet. All you know is like they're just basically it's almost like there's like a hole in the ground.
Yeah,
And
they're
it's like
digging,
just dumping
they're
them.
digging a mass grave, but you don't see that till you get there. So the three of them, the three people in the truck say like, like we got to go and talk to them and help them. Say, look, we're pressed,
Yeah.
leave us alone. And
The older guy
guy
is like-
stays back.
And because he also thinks
He's like this
is not looking.
we
this
should
doesn't
just
smell
leave
right.
because otherwise we're all dead.
Yep.
And they're like, no, we can't do that. So they go and they start going up to these guys, and the one guy who really is like
The ringleader.
the ringleader,
Yeah.
and I forget his name, but
Jesse Plemons.
so, yeah, something like
Plemons,
that.
something like that. Yeah.
He was
in
in
real
Breaking
life.
Bad.
I think that's his name. Yeah.
He was in Breaking Bad. He played a character in Breaking Bad, and this is like the type of character that he's actually good at playing. He's almost like
He's like emotionless.
he's
Just-
he's like an emotionless. I don't want to say psychopathic because he's very calm. He's an emotionless like robot almost in terms of how he approaches it. And he was his character was like that in Breaking Bad.
Yes.
He did some really crazy stuff, and he was just completely blank faced and just like, well, this is what we got to do.
But like the scene in the commercial is like it shows like a tense moment, but the way that Alex Garland builds this scene up from the moment that these journalists approach these men until the very end of that,
I think
was incredible.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think it's the best scene in the film.
I agree with you.
It's
I
really intense because
You don't know what's gonna like as an audience person.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea what's gonna happen. Like
You don't
these
know where it's
guys,
gonna go.
these guys have these weapons. They seem on edge, and they could have just as easily just pulled the trigger and killed everybody. Within seconds for no reason at all. And they basically the one guy on his knees, they just blow him away because they were all there to the three of them show up. The two of the friends are on the ground on their knees,
and they're trying to talk and negotiate.
Right, they're trying to
and say,
negotiate out. It's like,
look,
listen, we're pressed.
We're pressed.
We're just passing through.
There's no worries. And it's like, oh, these people? It's like, yeah, that's my friend. He goes, oh, this guy's your friend.
Yes.
And he just shoots him right in the chest.
Yep, point
And
blank.
Point blank, and he just goes down dead. And everyone's like, oh my God.
And the girl Jessie, the young girl, she's the other one on her knees.
Yeah, and she's like
frightened.
She's frightened out of her mind. And so the other Asian guy is like, that was
his friend.
Really his like a really good friend. Like they all
Yeah.
kind of knew each other. And this guy, so he starts the guy with the gun, and he's wearing these crazy red plastic glasses with hearts on them.
And he's just holding his automatic weapon.
Which makes him even scarier.
Yes.
Like wearing something crazy like that, as opposed to like military
Regular
glasses,
glasses.
Or even sunglasses. He's wearing these weird freaking glasses, but he's don't dare laugh at him. He'll shoot you right between the eyes.
Yeah.
So he starts talking to the other Asian guy, and the other Asian guy can
first they
barely
started asking.
talk.
Well, first they're all.
Well, they're
basically
asking
like,
where everybody is.
Yeah, and he's like, we're all American. The press guy was like, we're all American. He's
It's
like,
like,
well,
yeah,
what kind of American
are you? Now
And
it's
they
like,
start
oh,
getting into like where you're from.
and
And that's
it's
the
like-
scene that you see in that's
it's
what you see in the
scary
trailer.
because they all know that like.
It's like if you say the wrong place, this guy's going to kill you.
Yeah. So do I tell him the truth, or do I try and figure out what I think
Where
he
he
wants to
wants.
hear?
Yeah.
And it's like you don't know because now like I said, none of the journalists have guns. They have nothing to defend themselves. They don't even have knives.
No, they have
You
nothing.
know, they don't even have no bats, no knives, nothing.
Yeah, and essentially they basically just say these. They all say where they're. The three of them say where they're from.
Yeah.
And it's like he doesn't say anything. He basically he's like, okay, well, the Kirsten Dunst, what does she say? Colorado.
Yeah,
And he's like, that's American, and then the other
Somebody
and
else
then
is-
Jesse says,
I think Minnesota.
Missouri.
or Missouri.
She says Missouri. And then he was asking her a question about Missouri, and she couldn't answer it. And I thought that was going to be a problem.
Yeah,
And then I forget where they asked.
and I think the other guy was from Florida.
Yeah, he was from Florida.
You know, which is weird, because like not for nothing, like if Florida
Florida's
is
one of the
secession
states.
states, to me it was like,
Is that what he
is
wants?
that a bad answer or not?
Yeah.
So then they start talking to the Chinese guy, and the Chinese guy could barely speak because his friend just got killed
Yeah.
in front of him.
Yeah.
And when he finally gets out that he's from Hong Kong, and he's like, "Oh,
Oh.
you're from China,"
Oh, China.
and he just blows him away.
But it's like, but he makes like no qualms about it. Just like,
Yeah.
oh, China, boom.
Yeah,
He
just
blows him away.
just as a matter of fact, you're,
then
you're
that-
on the dead list.
and then the one guy, the friend, he's trying to like calm him down, like just trying to like say, let us go, and then the guy with the glasses is just like you're like, what are you trying to say? And like he's pointing his gun at him, and he's ready to blow him away, like he was gonna be next. And then here comes the old man,
The old man
in the truck,
barreling through 60 miles an hour, comes out of nowhere and hits the two guys with the guns,
Yep.
and they go flying.
and Jesse too. Jesse gets hit.
Jesse gets knocked into the graveside
Yeah.
as well, and they're about to leave her, but they see her trying to crawl out.
Yeah,
And they
and
get
then
her.
you see the mass grave, and
Yeah.
it's like bodies
Yeah,
on top of bodies.
and they're all civilians.
Yep.
Nobody,
No
no
military.
military people whatsoever. They're just killing, people of everybody.
And I think that's part of like what the war would turn into.
Yeah, craziness.
You would have people that they feel that they're on the right side of things, deciding who gets to live and who gets to die.
Well, yeah, just like the scene in the gas station,
Yeah.
where these these guys are
They were
running this
stringing
gas
up.
station, and they have guns, and they
Yep.
had these two guys strung up because they were looters, and they're people from the neighborhood.
Yep.
They knew
Yeah,
them.
that one guy knew him.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, I went to high school with that guy," and they got these guys strung up, and they're beating on them, and they're been there for days, and
Yeah.
they're torturing them.
Like a lot of this movie takes place out like in countryside, like in small towns. It's not like it's the only city scenes that you really see is New York City in the very beginning, and then when they get to DC at the end. Everything else that takes place in between, it's all countryside. So
It's
how they shot this, I thought was just really smart because like everything looked like it was on location. Looked like you went to these like
Yeah.
these small towns and filmed.
so when they're leaving, they finally get away. And there was actually a third
There's
guy.
one guy. There's one
There was
other
a third guy.
Yeah,
and
one other guy with a gun.
He's shooting at the truck as it's leaving, and as it turns out, the old man who was driving actually
gets clipped,
He
yeah.
winds up getting shot, and he eventually
Yeah, he dies.
dies from that wound. But what was really impressive about that whole scene is the journalists' reaction
Yeah,
to
all of them.
to
So seeing that happen in front of them.
to the depth and violence and senselessness
Yeah.
and the precarious situation,
Because
like
these guys didn't care that they were pressed.
yeah,
They
not
didn't
knowing
care.
if you were coming out alive, at any point you could be the person getting shot next. This could be the end.
I think like part of their reactions was it was obviously being upset that their friend was killed in front of them,
You're talking shock.
and and then the other part of it was just the fact that they probably almost couldn't believe that they lived.
Yeah,
All saying they probably all said to themselves, "We should be like
Yeah,
we
this is
could
the
and
end.
should be dead at this point."
because like the Asian guy that was the second Asian guy that was before he was killed, he couldn't even speak.
He was inconsolable at
Because
that
he
point.
was in such shock and fear and overcome with emotion, with
Yeah.
grief and fear and just pure terror.
Because I think he knew as soon as he said Hong Kong,
he was
gonna
almost
die.
like incapable of functioning. And when they were in the car driving away, like a little bit afterwards, the young girl Jessie, she's actually throwing up,
Yeah.
and
That's like the shock.
that is it is a this movie had very realistic scenes of violence and death and brutality, and realistic reactions
Yeah.
to that, which you don't see very often anymore because of the amount of violence that is in film now. It's commonplace. It's commonplace for the audience, and it's even commonplace in the movies where people are getting shot left and right, and it's like, yeah, well, that's what happens.
Right. It's like what you expect.
It's gratuitous. It reminded me this movie reminded me very much of how violence was depicted in the late '60s and '70s when movies finally were able, when they introduced the rating system. Movies became rated R because of content, and you could, and rated R movies usually had more adult themes, but they usually had more violence. And a lot of those movies in that time period, showed violence as it really is, which is ugly and scary and disturbing.
The one reaction that I really liked was Morrow's reaction. So eventually they reach a base, a Western Forces base right outside of DC.
Yeah.
And like they almost have a chance to stop and rest. And this is like the thing that we were talking about before, where it's like it doesn't matter. Like I feel like if it was the U.S. forces, I don't know if they would have been treated as well, based on what we had been hearing in the movie and how journalists were being treated in D.C. itself. I don't know if they would have been treated like this, but the Western forces welcomed them in.
Yeah.
They gave them medical care.
Yeah.
They gave them food and water. And there were other journalists there that they met up with, that they were friends with. But Morrow comes out, and like the scene is basically like these tanks and cars just like pulling up, and they were all getting their forces ready to march onto DC. And Morrow's just screaming, but you can't hear it.
Yeah.
You don't hear it over the tanks and everything going on.
Yeah.
But it's deafening. Like you can tell it's deafening, and he's in such emotional stress.
Turmoil.
Over all of that. And then even like, and this is one of the times where I feel like you really start to see Kirsten Dunst completely change, because she has flashbacks in this movie of when she was in other wars, probably most likely Afghanistan and Iraq, taking photos and everything, and she's doing her job in those war zones with no emotion, like completely separated as things are going on. And you see her taking pictures of U.S. soldiers.
People getting shot in the
that are
head.
getting shot,
people
right.
getting lit on fire.
Yes.
There's one scene where there's a guy. He's like
in a tire.
He's
trapped in a
tire, like
His
a car
arms are down.
tire.
Yeah.
And he's like, they secured him in here, and they probably doused him with gasoline and lit him on
They
fire.
just lit him up, and she just sat there and took
Pictures
as
of
it
it.
happened.
Well, I mean, see the difference in that. So that guy's, he's screaming, and he's overflowing with anguish and anger.
Yeah.
And what makes it all different in this scenario is that they were part.
This happened to
them.
her.
This happened to them.
She wasn't she wasn't someone on the outside looking in.
Right.
She was inside this
Yes,
incident.
they were in the scene. They were in the incident. So like if that was happening and some other press people showed up,
Right.
and just took
the
pictures, it would be completely different, because they would be like, okay, but they're not observers in this case.
Yeah.
They're actually in the event.
It was, I mean, it
And
really
it's
is
harrowing.
It's the best scene of the movie.
Oh, it
really is.
It's really intense.
And it's like a 7-minute scene. Like it's not a huge chunk of time, but emotionally what they capture is absolutely incredible.
Because it's realistic, because in the sense that it real, like, if it happened to you, like
Right.
how
how would you handle something
say
like that?
You're in a restaurant, with your family, and all of a sudden, armed robbers come in, and they start shooting people
Yeah.
at the next table.
They walk up to someone and just
and
blow their brains
yeah,
away.
and next thing you got like maybe you were 10 people, and one of those people gets shot in the
Right.
point and killed. Like if you were really in that situation, you would be overcome with panic and fear and revulsion. A real life reaction to that, because it doesn't happen to people that often.
Right.
But if it did, it would be emotionally shattering. It would be life changing. It would destroy you. You would the scene with the girl vomiting to me was like I'm not ready.
that's
I'm
what
not
you
ready
would
to vomit
expect.
right now.
You'd
But
be
if somebody
sick.
came in here and put a bullet in your head, I would probably throw up.
Thank you for putting me under the
Yeah.
bus.
Oh yeah. Well, if I got shot in the head, you'd probably throw up too. But like if you really think about it, it's like in real life, it would be an unbelievably emotionally and physically excruciating.
But you really start to see the big changes, I think, between Jesse and Kirsten Dunst in that scene. Because afterwards is, when they get to DC, they're the opposite. And this to me is where the growth happens. So like basically they find out at this point that the Western forces are now marching on DC, that they found out that a lot of American forces have basically surrendered, but the White House hasn't yet. And basically the only people that are still at the White House are Secret Service
and
a handful
and some military.
and a handful of military.
Yeah, had to be some. It was definitely some military.
But it's like the amount of forces that the Western forces have. I mean, jets, helicopters,
tanks,
these Humvees that are all coming
I
out.
tell you, some of the scenes that they showed of the overhead
Oh, that was impressive.
of like just there was
Their campsites.
Yeah, there was a couple of scenes. There was at least one scene where they had like a really far above shot where there was a lot of helicopters going.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that all those helicopters were real,
Oh, I think
as opposed to
like
just
CGI.
being a bunch of CG helicopters. Like like when you watch a Star Wars movie, all the Star Destroyers go by. They're not real.
No, I don't think you're. I don't think you're wrong in thinking that,
Yeah.
but it seemed very real.
It seemed very real, and if
I'll tell you what.
if it was,
if it was CGI, they fooled me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it was real.
because it was actually pretty cool to see that. I think the visuals in the film were really good. I think the cinematography was good. The music, I thought, in some cases was a little too modern for my tastes,
Okay.
but it wasn't like that throughout the whole film. So the music to me changed a lot.
I
through
thought
film, so it was
the music was balanced well, based on the scenes.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And when they chose to use sound and music.
Yeah, it wasn't the same music and or style of music throughout the entire film,
Right.
or,
It wasn't-
and not consistent either. Like there was a lot of scenes without any music
Silent.
going on.
Yes. Yeah. Which I thought
Yeah.
played very well. I mean, and then finally we end up in DC, and it's
And
just
the
like,
siege on DC.
DC was incredible.
I mean,
Visually,
Yeah.
that was incredible.
the firefighting, the gunfire,
The firefights
and
that were happening that
'cause
was in the nights, because it's nighttime, so
Yeah.
you see everything in the night sky.
because it
firing
wasn't
off.
just guys with guns.
Right.
It was like like those mounted
defense.
guns on tanks or on
defense
Jeeps.
turrets that were
like really shooting like
Yep.
and it was
like
was-
you're wondering
there
like if
was-
there was a
lot
siege
of
on
that.
DC, like is this what we would see?
people shooting bazookas and stuff and rocket launchers at at I want to say landmark buildings.
Yep.
I mean, it was
As they're basically as the Western front, the Western forces are as they're pushing through.
it was actually really that to me was a visually impressive long scene.
It
know,
made
I'm-
you.
I'm talking
it
about-
made you feel like you were like they were in DC.
Yeah, all the way up to the point before they got actually into the White House, because it was at that point. Because once you get into the White House, everybody's on foot.
Well, what's incredible.
Prior to that, it's like on foot and vehicles and
Well, I mean, they
and
get to
tanks
the
and
Western
cars.
The Western forces basically get to the point where they break down, they shatter this door. This wall actually is not a door; it's a wall basically of like concrete that's in steel that's protecting the perimeter of the White House, and they basically blast it down. And as they start to invade, there's still some resistance that's still there. But then you start hearing over the radio that they see people leaving the White House and they're getting into what's known as the Beast, which everybody pretty much knows. That's the presidential limo that takes him from place to place.
It's bulletproof.
Right. And so like there's a couple SUVs and then the Beast that's driving out, and like it's pulling through. They stop one of the SUVs, they stop the second, and then they basically crush the Beast. They basically pin it in between like a Humvee and this other car. And of course, the president's not in there, but they don't care who's coming out of that car. They don't question it. They don't do anything. They just kill them.
Yeah, it's you know
they're not taking hostages. They're not taking prisoners.
Nope.
They're just killing.
They're
them.
just killing them.
And like
they're taking no chances whatsoever.
And when they finally start to, and then Kirsten Dunst basically knows she sees the car hit. Well, this is one of the scenes. So what we start to see is the growth between Jesse's character and the changes that occur with Kirsten Dunst, because I don't even know if it's growth for Kirsten Dunst. It's almost like she's going backwards.
Yeah, she's becoming.
She's starting to emotionally feel what is going on, and it's hitting her.
Yeah, she's actually getting physically sick.
Right.
Yeah.
Compared to Jesse, who is now just gone through this major ordeal the day before.
And now she's almost fearless.
And now she's with the frontline people pushing forward into harm's way towards the White House.
They almost got to pull her back.
Right. And it's like she's literally like pushing herself forward, taking pictures, and she's taking risks. She's putting herself further and further out there.
You know what it is? I think she's on like an adrenaline rush. Because at any point in time, if she would have gotten shot, I guarantee you, she would have had a completely different turnaround mindset. If she had gotten,
that's possible.
Wounded,
but it's like this,
she's in the moment.
Yeah,
and
like you start to see, it's like she starts to believe what Kirsten Dunst was telling her earlier in the movie. She starts to now understand it, and is now living that in the moment,
because you're not even sitting there looking at, like, you're just like, okay, I'm moving to the next photo op.
Yes,
you know, like it's about.
It's like she couldn't get enough. She couldn't stop herself from taking the photos of what was going on, because it was historic. And then we get to the point where Kirsten Dunst finally sees what's going on. She's like, he's not in the car. Like, she knew based on her experience, I think, with everything.
Yeah, she made a judgment call.
She said, she was the first one to say, he's not in that car. Let's go.
We could get ahead.
We can get ahead of the military and get into the White House.
Yeah, and they do.
They get in there, and then of course the
military catches up
with them, and they get into the which is like the presidential briefing room, which is a famous room. Everyone sees this all the time on the news.
And there's like the girl there, and she's trying to negotiate, like almost like a peaceful surrender.
Yep.
And at some point, they just blow her away.
Yep. They're like, yeah, just bring him out here. Just bring him out here. Like, it's like they're just saying yes to everything at this point, because they know that they don't have a leg that the White House doesn't have a leg to stand on at this point. And they're not taking prisoners. They just blow her away. And they go into the next room, and then basically they make their way to the Oval Office. But before they get there, there's a scene earlier on in the film where it's just Kirsten Dunst and the girl Jessie, and they are looking at this downed helicopter in this empty parking lot. And it's very shortly after a scene where Jessie kind of like broke down after seeing something, and Kirsten Dunst is basically giving her the business of, you can't go down this rabbit hole of asking like who, what, when, where, why. Like, it's just like you're just there to take the picture.
Yeah. And
she says, and then Jessie asks her, would you photograph my death? You remember that?
No, I don't.
You don't remember that?
No.
Jessie asks Kirsten Dunst that, would you photograph my death, like if I die? And Kirsten Dunst is like, you know the answer to that.
The answer would be yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I did not remember.
You don't remember that?
I don't remember. That's key. I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
Do you remember that scene at the shopping cene
at the shopping center with the helicopter?
Yeah.
I do not remember that line of interaction.
So we get into the White House, and basically the Western forces are pushing themselves forward. I mean, they're taking the White House. It's apparent that they're pushing themselves forward, and Jesse's getting these great shots.
But she's running across.
Yeah, and she makes a
Like,
she makes
so
a
if there's a hallway,
yeah.
she keeps running across the end and taking pictures and getting out of the way. And it's like, whereas the guys,
You're only going to be able to do that for so long.
yeah, whereas
You're
the
in
guys
crossfire.
trying to going forward, they're like staying against the wall and moving like this.
They're staying in cover.
And, yeah,
and she puts
she's
herself.
going
She
right
literally puts herself in the middle of
in
the
the open
hallway,
air.
almost trying to get a shot of the Secret Service firing towards them.
Yeah, and she does that a couple of times,
Yeah,
but then,
successfully.
Yeah, but then finally, at some point, you can't do that forever.
She basically puts herself right out in front, and
And
everything hits
Kirsten
slow mo.
Dunst can see the Secret Service guy starting to come out, and he's going to start firing. Yeah, and Kirsten Dunst runs out and pushes Jesse down, but she's still standing.
Right, and Jesse immediately knows what's happening, and she starts taking shots of Kirsten Dunst getting shot in the
Yeah,
back.
and it's funny because you don't actually hear the gunfire.
No, it's silent.
It's silent.
Yes.
All you're doing is seeing.
You just see her fall.
You're seeing the progression of images of the pictures that
Yes.
Jesse is taking. And it's a matter of you see, okay, she's standing there, she just got hit,
Yep.
and now she's going to start to
I
go down.
thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, no, it is.
I thought that was really well done.
It was a different way of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
They told the story in a different way that made sense for this film.
And they did it all the way through because they get to the Oval Office and they capture the president, and he's trying to just negotiate and say, "Don't let them kill me."
Well, it was really funny.
Because like the one guy Mora, who's he's the other journalist.
He's the guy that
Kirsten Dunst.
absolutely wants to get an interview.
He wants an interview. That the whole point of getting there was to get an interview
with the president before.
And basically,
Yeah.
he stops the Western forces from killing him right away. They drag him out from behind the desk, behind the Resolute desk, and he basically says like,
Wait a second. Wait.
And he asks them like, "Do you have anything
He wants
to say?"
he doesn't have time for a full on interview, but
Yeah.
he wants like a sound bite.
Yes.
He goes, "What do you have to say?" And he goes, "Well, everything this is what are your last words?"
No, not even that. I think it was like, "Do you have anything to say?" It was like something like that.
Something like that. And he's like, "Please don't let them kill
me."
me." And he goes,
That'll do.
"That'll do." You know what it is? He got the president's last words, no matter what they were, and that's all he wanted.
And then what they
he
show,
didn't. It doesn't matter what he said.
and then they show him getting shot, right?
I think
they show him
so.
getting shot, and then almost immediately afterwards, they start to show black and white photos of the people that shot him,
Well-
and they're holding him up.
Yeah, it's a slowly developing picture
Yes,
that comes into focus, and I think it's over the credits.
yes,
It's over the end credits.
Yep.
And it's original. When it starts out, it's just you can't see anything.
right. It's
But
white.
it's like
Like a,
truly watching film develop in in a dark room.
It's like a Polaroid.
Yeah,
It's like watching
and
a Polaroid.
and it slowly comes to
Comes to the surface.
comes to the surface, and you see the picture, and it's like it's like the guys, like this guy,
Yeah.
like they were duck hunting,
Yeah, it's like they caught
This is their
they
showing
caught
off
their
kill.
target, and it was, I mean, the credits start to roll, and I'm just like, I'm listening to the music, and like John and I are just starting to talk, and it's like, I don't know, it was just like, it was such a thought-provoking film, and obviously, like, the biggest elephant in the room is that in our climate that we're in right now in this country, it's almost like it's not so far-fetched that
Gotcha.
you could see something like this happening, or at least attempted
You
in
know
the
what
near
it,
future.
You know what it is? It's more of the current climate. If you took that and blew it up,
Yeah.
you know what I
Like
mean?
you injected it with steroids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like like make it come to a head. because I guarantee you there's so many arguments out there that people have had, you know, Democrat versus Republican, red versus blue, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
where it's like, you know what, like just elevate that by tenfold or hundredfold,
Yeah.
and then what you have is a civil war.
And and I think that's one of the reasons why I liked what Alex did so much, because he's not pointing fingers at either side. He's not doing that. I mean, for God's sakes, he's putting California and Texas, which are typically, ideally, on opposite sides of the spectrum. He's putting those two states together as part of this Western Front that have seceded. So it's interesting to me. It's like, well, what would have brought them together?
Yeah.
That they want to stop what's happening in DC. So like, to me, like that was part of the genius of it. It's like there's just such like thought-provoking questions that you don't get spoon-fed. And I think that's one of the brilliant things about this.
It's
is
right.
that
It doesn't give you the answer.
It doesn't give you
and
the
it doesn't.
answers.
It doesn't matter because those aren't.
But that wasn't the point.
Yeah,
the point. The point wasn't about why it was going on.
Right.
The point was just about seeing everything through the eyes of these journalists and watching what would we be doing? What people would we become if this occurred?
Yeah.
And I think it started to show that there would be people that would have their heads in the sand that wouldn't be thinking that this is not such a real thing, but they're like, if we put our heads in the sand, it's not going to come here. It's not going to affect us.
Right.
You know, and they showed that. They showed people that would get too crazy with basically like there's no one that's going to stop them. There's no law enforcement that's going to stop what they're doing.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, free reign to do whatever you want.
Right. And like we see that aspect of it. We see the people that are desperate, that need help, that can't get it. You know, like it's amazing what they were able to show in this film.
And you know, and then you got the people that just like, you know, they have, you know, people like in the Midwest, whatever, like, you know, you can see like, you know, they have a lot of guns and they're just like, you know what, I'm defending my own.
My property. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. You know, and I think that it was great that it's just, it's not about picking a side. It's showing the reality of what this type of what would happen and the carnage that would ensue.
Yeah.
You know, like, and at the end of the day, it's almost like no one really wins.
Well, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, people like as a country, like you don't.
Yeah, I mean,
win from something like this.
Okay, the president was killed.
Now what?
The Civil War does that mean the Civil War's over?
Yeah.
And
what would happen?
Yeah, I mean, everybody else is still mad at whatever. Everybody else still feels the way they feel. I think one of the parts of the movie that inside just I found a little humorous was the fact that Florida is also on the fringe of like.
Well, Florida was trying to pull in the Carolinas, like they were trying to
get them. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, Florida, really? I'm like, all the retirees in Florida got together and, I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, they probably, started mobilizing their troops 6 months ago and they're almost at the Florida-Georgia border. They're getting there. They're just, they're moseying along going, we'll get them. We're in it. We're in it. Just give me a minute. My hip is acting up. I'm just like, really? Florida would be the state I would be least scared about. Like, are you kidding me? Florida?
I really enjoyed this film. I thought it hit a lot of the notes that I was hoping it would hit, I have to say. And I thought visually it was a great looking film. The acting I thought was top notch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I give it 4 stars. Like some people saying, like this is like the best movie of the year, best movie in years.
I would say in 2024, this might be the best film of 2024 so far.
You know what? I'll be honest with you, it could be because in my opinion, like the average quality of movies these days to me is abysmal. So it's like, yeah, this easily could be the best movie so far.
I mean, yeah, but like granted, it's only 4 months into the year.
In a good year, this would have a lot of competition already. Mm-hmm. Especially because spring, summer. Oh wait, we're coming up to summer.
Right.
Oh, summer. Oh, we haven't had the summer blockbuster. But at the end of the day, the summer blockbusters are usually not Oscar-worthy films.
They're
It's
usually
all
not.
the- it's
Those
all
are
the-
usually about money.
It's all the popcorn nonsense.
But this is a
roller coaster
film.
films.
I fully expect to see some nominations for this film.
Yeah, no, I thought
come
it was
award
good.
season.
I thought it was good.
You know, I did too. I really enjoyed this movie. I was very pleased with how everything turned out.
One of the
One
things,
thing-
the only other thing I wanted to mention is like when I was saying before, like how movies back in the day showed, when they showed violence, it was like it was not glorious, it was not glamorized, it was like violent, supposed to be repulsive. Movies like
And that was this.
movies
was
like
this.
Bonnie and Clyde, movies like Deliverance. Like to me, Deliverance is the one
I
that
still have to see that.
and movies like The Wild Bunch, like these things, did not make it look commonplace. Did not make it look.
Glamorous.
Yeah, it's not glorified gratuitous violence.
Yeah.
It was like it's supposed to be. They showed violence realistically, brutally, and ugly.
It should hit you emotionally, and
Yeah.
this film does, I think, a great job of that.
It
I
does
really-
it as good as any other film ever done. Like that scene in the middle of the movie is, to me, I consider that an iconic classic scene. I really do. That to me is enough for the price of admission. Just that scene.
I agree 100%.
But,
that scene
and-
alone is worth going.
And
to
then
see this film.
getting to the end with the siege on Washington D.C.
No, but that's
that
a great
was-
scene too.
That was really.
But that to me is the third
Yeah.
scene. The beginning, the
Yeah.
explosion in the beginning, the scene in the middle with the mass grave, and the march on DC. Like that to me, the siege on DC. Those three scenes are so well done.
I'll be honest with you. I would see this movie again in the movies. If somebody said, "Hey, we're going to
You
see
should
it,"
take Carmen to see it.
I would see this again. This is a movie I think is worthy of a second viewing, but usually my second viewing is at home on TV. I want
see this
I
in
want
the
to see a
theater.
second viewing in the
This
theater.
so. For those of you that are always on the fence about whether you should wait or not, go see this movie in the theater. It's worth seeing in the theater. It's a good movie
yeah,
experience.
It's worth seeing on the big screen for
Absolutely.
sure.
So I think, guys,
I think with that-
I think we're going to wrap it up.
So, how many stars do you give it?
I'm never a guy who ranks it. I'm not the star guy. You're the star
I'm
guy.
the star guy.
You give the rankings.
I gotta go with 3.5. Solid
Out of
3.
4.
Solid 3.5 out of 4.
That's a
right.
pretty high. That's a pretty high grade for Johnny
me.
Mo.
Yeah, my 3.5 is most people's 4.
I got to say that's a pretty high marking from him. I really enjoyed it. I think you guys will as well.
Yeah.
Go see this movie in the theater. Don't wait for it to come out on demand.
Don't watch it
or-
on your cell phone or your tablet
Yeah, please don't. Don't watch any movie on your cell phone.
or your tablet.
Yeah.
Watch
Try
it
not to.
on watch it on
Unless
the
you're
big
on a-
screen
Unless you're on a train.
or watch it on the No, you don't. No, you don't watch
Or
movies
plane.
on the train.
On the plane?
You don't watch them on the plane. The only movies you watch on the plane are
Movies you've
movies that
seen?
you've already seen.
All right, I agree with that. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. With
All
that,
right.
we are going to go. So,
Cheers.
Number 65 in the books, folks. Talk to you
See
guys.
you next
soon.
time at
See
the
you next
movies.
time at the movies. Is that necessary?
Yeah, it's a great outtake.
I'm not doing that as an outtake.